live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Just Bernard Show here across my social media platforms. It's so good to see all of you. Thank you for joining us today. This week, we have a great guest joining us. We're going to be talking about the art of stopping and how to be still when you have to keep going. And isn't that something we all need to be doing nowadays, especially with the busy culture and society that we have cultivated somehow. So it's important for us to learn how to stay present, but still keep going, I guess is a good way of saying it. Anyway, this last week has been pretty busy. It's been nonstop working on multiple projects. I've been very grateful to get involved with, as you all know, maybe from last year, I've been involved with the local chapter of V-Day, which is to promote women's causes here in V-Day Roanoke. And I just shot a little mini commercial with them yesterday to help promote the upcoming play that they'll be doing to raise awareness and to raise funds for another local nonprofit here in the Roanoke Valley. So it's always a pleasure to work with them, and they're such a great organization, as is Sarah, which is an organization working with women dealing with abuse and other issues and violence within their lives. So anything I can do to help, I'm always here. So I'm grateful to be asked to participate in that. Anyway, other than that, like I said, it's been pretty busy. Just keep going and going, which is why I feel it's so important to take those moments to stop. I have a habit of doing something I call me day. And I had my me day on Sunday. I usually take one day a week where I put nothing on my schedule. I don't answer the phone. I don't answer the door. I do what I want when I feel like it for 24 hours. And it seems to keep me going. So we're going to be talking with David. Let me tell you a little bit about David Kundtz. He is the author of a new book called The Art of Stopping, How to Be Still When You Have to Keep Going. He's enjoyed several careers in his life, including 19 years as a Catholic priest, 20 years in the practice of psychotherapy, and has taught courses on managing stress and emotional health and writing. He has graduate degrees in psychology and theology and a doctorate in pastoral psychology. Among the 7 books he's authored are Quiet Mind, Moments in Between, Awakened Mind, and of course, he's here today to talk to us about his latest book, The Art of Stopping, How to Be Still When You Have to Keep Going. Thank you so much for joining us today, David. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bernard. Great to be with you. Yeah, really, I've been looking forward to it.
Oh, and just for our viewers that are watching, we're having camera issues with David, so you're going to see his name pop up a lot, but I swear that's really him.
I'm really here.
He's really here. Anyway, David, so why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about this particular topic and this idea of the art of stopping? What was it? What was the journey that brought you to this place that you wanted to share this information with the world?
Well, Bernard, as you mentioned, I was a priest for many, many years. And during that time, I had what you would call a classic midlife crisis. Okay. Things sort of fell out of the bottom and my life was not giving me the fulfillment that it had up to that point. My vocation things just sort of fell apart. So what I did almost by accident is I went away for a month to the northern coast of California and rented a small cabin, and I did nothing for a month. And it was only afterwards, after looking back on my experience, that I developed the whole concept of stopping. So stopping basically is doing nothing for a definite period of time, whether it's a moment or a month or a day like you take, to wake up and remember who you are. So the whole purpose of stopping, doing nothing on purpose, is so that the going is right. So that when you're going and when you're doing things, you're on the road you want to be on, you're with the people you want to be with, and you're going in the direction that you want to go. Because so often in our culture, as you indicated, the distractions are immense. And they're very challenging, and they're very difficult, and they're very attractive in many ways. And if we don't stop, and if we don't hear the inner voice, the inner wisdom that is always available to us, I believe, then we'll take on the culture of we'll take on the values of the predominant culture, which could be, as you know, totally disastrous.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So my original impetus for doing stopping was very, very personal. I sort of fell apart, and I had to stop and sort of put the pieces back together, and that's how I came to develop the whole concept of stopping.
That's fantastic, and it's a great concept. With that being said, something jumped into my mind as you were speaking in reference to remembering who we are. Now, this can go into many different tangents, but I remembered watching a lecture, an old lecture from like the 70s or 80s of Ram Dass. And he spoke about different aspects of ourselves, and one of them being the reactive mind and the automatic pilot. And how when we do get so busy, sometimes we're well, he said there was 3 states. I forgot. I guess the third state was being connected to our higher self. And he said many times we're just, at any moment, we are on automatic pilot, just going through the motions, repetitive, stuff that we've done, or we're reacting to the needs of the people or the work and whatnot around us. And
right.
I think that's a great way to take a look and say, wait, I need to stop for a minute and remember, like you said, remembering who we are.
Yes, exactly. Because if we forget that, it actually ends up with a tragic life if we don't really remember what we want. And I'm convinced that we all carry within us the inner wisdom to know what we need to know to live our lives to the greatest extent that we can. But we don't all access that wisdom. And that's why I tried to develop this whole concept of stopping, to access that inner wisdom, so that we really do remember what we want and why we started doing what we're doing at the present time.
Yeah. So for people that are watching and saying, well, I have to raise, this is the biggest complaint I get. I have to raise a family.
Right.
I have to take care of a home. I have to take care of a job. Sometimes I have to do all of them.
Right.
What do you tell somebody who says, my life is full of demands. How do you expect me to just stop?
Right, Bernard. And I really don't want to be glib here, because I really, really feel for people who have 2 jobs, 2 kids, and homeschooling and balancing all these balls at the same time. I don't want to be glib and say, oh, you can do it. Well, it is challenging. But what I would say to somebody like that is, you can't afford not to stop, especially you who are going 1,000,000 miles an hour. And once you try stopping, it will take on its own energy and its own force with you. So I would suggest to people like that, start with what I call still points. Stopping is I divide it into 3 sections, and it's according to the time or the amount of time that you spend doing it. There are still points, there are stopovers, and there are grinding halts. Let's start with still points, because that's where stopping can really get into our lives. And these are the few seconds, the few minutes that you take during your day. Anybody, no matter how busy you are, I'm convinced you can afford a minute or 2 during the day to stop, turn your energy in, say a prayer, say an affirmation, or say nothing. Just simply close your eyes, be still, turn your energy in. And if you do that, if you do those still points for, say, 10, 20, 30 times a day, and nobody even knows you're doing them, then you'll come to the end of your day more relaxed, more centered, because you have put those little moments of time in your life in which you are doing nothing. they accumulate. Once you put those stopping moments or still points into your life, then my conviction is they will be so beneficial and you'll enjoy them so much that you'll want to do stopovers. And stopovers are the longer times, like your day that you just described, my me day. That's a perfect example of a stopover. Doing nothing for a day or a couple days or something about that amount of time. Just doing what you want to do, or doing nothing, or fussing around, or I really feel bad for kids these days that don't have that time that I had, and I don't know if you had when you were a kid, but just times where you just hang out. My parents used to say, "Go outside and play." Get out of my, and that's what we'd do. We'd go outside and we'd just fuss around. I remember going out to my grandfather's pig farm, and he'd just say, "Go do whatever you want to do," and I'd fuss around the farm for an hour doing nothing. Those are the times, you see, I'm convinced, those are the times that we have access to our inner wisdom. Because there's nothing distracting us. There's nothing saying, "Hey, look at me. Hey, do this. Hey, you got to do that. Hey, this is an obligation. You got to do this and that and everything else." No, you don't. You just be still, and then you'll hear your voice.
Yes, you're here. Now, is that fair? Well, it just made me think of something like something came to mind that it's in those times that I usually have those aha moments where you get that clarity of like, oh, I just realized how to handle that situation.
Right.
Because I wasn't thinking about it, I guess, is a good way to
Exactly.
put it.
No, precisely. It's because you're not thinking about it that wisdom sneaks in, and that you say, "Oh, yes." There's the story of Eli Whitney, who invented the cotton gin, and he had a dream, and the dream was, he invented the sewing machine, and he had a dream, and he was in the middle of a big boiling cauldron, and there were warriors surrounding him with spears, and the spears were all pointed at him, and he looked at the tip of one of the spears, and there was a hole in it, and he said, "Oh my gosh, that's it. The hole's in the other end of the needle." So was he looking for that solution? No, wasn't looking for it at all. It was an epiphany. It was, oh, the hole's in the other end of the needle. That's the answer to my problem, even when he wasn't looking for it. So just like the example that you gave yourself.
Yeah. And you said there was another component. What is it? The grinding halt.
Grinding halt.
Grinding halt. Is that
Now,
like a 3-month vacation?
Exactly. Well, let's talk about that, because, and you brought up another idea of vacations I want to get to too.
Yeah.
But a grinding halt, it's not for everybody. Some people will never have a grinding halt in their life, but most people will. And what do I mean by a grinding halt? I mean a long period of time. 2 weeks, a week, or 2 weeks, a month, really a significant amount of time. Unfortunately, the way most people get their grinding halts is through illness or accident. And that's the kind of a grinding halt that doesn't do you any good, because you're sick and it's very hard to grow spiritually when you're sick. You can do it after you've had the experience, but when you're sick, your attention is with your sickness, and it needs to be to healing, to get well. So don't do a grinding halt by getting sick. Do a grinding halt on purpose. Go away for a week. Now, this is very difficult for most people to do. I realize that. And again, don't want to be glib about this. Most people can't just get away and do what they want for a week. I understand that. But once in a while in your life, that opportunity might come up. And if it does, that's when I say, take it. Do it. Go away. And for most people, of course, that brings up, okay, let's ask this question. Why do most people not practice stopping? Why do most people not sit quietly in a room alone for 15 minutes? Mostly, I think it's because they're afraid of what might come up. But in my experience, what comes up as a psychotherapist, what comes up for most people isn't so bad. It isn't something that they can't handle. And if it is something that they need to handle, well, then they need to handle it. So I would say put aside the fear and go sit in a room for as long as you can. I think it was Blaise Pascal, the French philosopher, who said, all of man's troubles stem from the fact that he can't sit alone in a room. And we can't.
I have to agree. That's one of my theories as well, that much of the time we are not comfortable with that inner chatter that goes on when we're not doing something.
That's right. Yeah, I have
And
to
meanwhile,
do
that's
something.
an opportunity to allow healing to begin, to see where there are issues that we need to overcome. But a lot of times we prefer to be distracted from those issues.
So true. We want to be distracted. And the thing is that the world offers such interesting distractions and such compelling distractions that it's difficult to say no, or to say, okay, wait, maybe is this really what I want to do? Let me listen to my inner voice. Let me be still. And this is, Bernard, I must admit this at the very beginning. Stopping is countercultural. It goes against all the messages that our culture gives us, which is be busy, be going, do things, get things done. And we in the Western world, we're good at that. We're very good at that.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of things done. We've done amazing things, continue to do amazing things, which is wonderful. And I'm not saying that everyone wants to live their life at a slow pace. Some people love that fast pace. What I am saying is you can't go at that pace for the whole time. You've got to spend time being quiet. Just shut up. Sit there. Be alone with your thoughts. They will love you. You will love yourself. It isn't so bad. That's what I have to keep telling people. It isn't, no big monster is going to jump out and eat you. And if there is a monster in there, well, you better know who it is and call him by name and deal with him.
Yes.
And you can.
So true. So true. And this all sounds very parallel to the concepts of mindfulness. How do they overlap? Is it similar? Is it different?
Yes, it's different and it's the same. Mindfulness, and maybe that's just another way of saying stopping. Mindfulness, being in the moment. I would say, and it's the same thing with meditation. Stopping is a form of meditation, but it's a form of meditation that I hope is more attractive and more realistic to the Western mind. For a lot of us, it's really hard to sit down every day for a half hour or whatever it is. And I think that's a wonderful, good practice. And I've done it in my life and probably will do it again. But for so many of us, we don't do it because it just doesn't fit into our schedule of sitting down, doing the practice. There's always something. But still points, you see, that's what's different. Those we can get in. We can, if you're busy, you're at the office or you're at home or something, and you're just feeling frustrated, go to the bathroom. Go in the bathroom, mm-hmm. Lock the door, look in the mirror, splash some water on your wrists, and look yourself in the eye and say what you need to hear, or say nothing. Say a prayer, say an affirmation, turn your energy in, close your eyes, breathe, always breathe, take deep breaths, and then go back to what you're doing, a little refreshed. And then in a half hour, do it again. I often gave presentations and seminars, and mostly to nurses, very stressed people.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they really found effective were these still points that they could put into their day when no one even knew they were doing it. If you just take a minute to breathe, you close your eyes. I would do still points during the time that I was presenting the seminar, and no one would know that I was doing it. I would just stop. I wouldn't close my eyes at that point, which is okay. Turn my energy in, be still, and then go on. If you pepper your days with those, I guarantee you'll come to the end of it more relaxed and more integrated and more awake, more aware of what you need. In our culture too, it's competitive. Mm-hmm. And so often you hear of executives, men and women, trying to climb the corporate ladder. And tragically, what happens so often to these people is they get to the top of the ladder and they discovered that the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Mm-hmm. They're at the top, but they're not at the top of what they wanted to be at the top of. What a tragedy. What a tragedy.
And unfortunately, very common.
and very common. And it's one of those things one of the things that happened to me when I went off for my grinding halt when I was a clergyman was that I realized, life is very short, very, very short, and there's only a certain amount of things that you can do. And I needed to find, okay, is this really what I wanted to do? And it was only after I did the stopping and came back to my life that I realized, okay, now it's becoming clear. And then I realized that it was during that time of stillness that I had access to the wisdom I needed.
Yes, exactly. And I actually wanted to ask you about that. Maybe you could expand on what you just said, that where this stopping is this, what do they get from it? Where is the empowerment? Where's the power? Where's the clarity? Can this be expanded upon?
I think what you're asking me is, what are the benefits of stopping? What do you get out of stopping? Well, there's one main thing you get out of stopping, and that is finding your purpose. In other words, there's a story that I don't know if you know James Hillman. He was sort of a renegade psychologist, brilliant. And he told that he has a theory called the acorn theory. And the theory goes that we don't need to grow up, we need to grow down. And we need to grow down into the calling that we had at our birth. He tells the story of Ella Fitzgerald. And Ella Fitzgerald, when she was a little girl, was in a talent show. And she came out on stage and the MC said, Miss Ella Fitzgerald is going to dance for you. And she goes up to the MC and whispers in his ear, and he comes back and he tells the folks, oh, Miss Fitzgerald has changed her mind. She's going to sing for you. And he gave that as an example of somebody who found her calling very, very young, very early in life. Most of us don't. But that's an example of finding, okay, no, I don't want to dance. I want to sing. So it's just like somebody, I don't want to be an insurance salesman. I want to teach people how to water ski. I want to teach people how to enjoy nature. Whatever it is. So that's the main purpose. That's the main gift of stopping. Then there's a bunch of other ones. The most important one I think of is what I call the gift of attention. Paying attention. And that gets right back to mindfulness, doesn't it? Being in the moment, knowing what's going on right now, looking the person you're talking to in the eye, and being there and being present, the gift of attention. I like to think, for people who are religious, I like to think of the gift of attention as really the same as prayer. Mm-hmm. What is prayer? It's paying profound attention to a moment, or to a reality, or to God, or to the presence of someone in your life. So those two, finding your purpose, paying attention, and there's a bunch of other things too. The gift of relaxation, for example. I'm convinced many people in our culture have very few relaxing moments in their life. Think of people who are caring for chronically ill people, for example, or somebody who's caring for somebody with Alzheimer's or somebody like that. They have very few moments of relaxation. But with stopping, you can get that. The gift of solitude, the gift of knowing your boundaries, where you stop and somebody else begins, so you don't get all enmeshed in somebody. So there's just so many gifts that I outline in the book, but those are a few.
Absolutely. And they're all wonderful gifts that I hope would be a priority for us in some part of our life. And with that being said, you mentioned people who are caretakers, or, well, I'll use myself as an example. When I started doing this work in service, my priority was other people. And it took me over a decade to realize that, what's that old saying? The empty cup can't fill, the empty pitcher cannot fill a cup,
That's right. Yes.
And just to even put myself first was a struggle. It was, I don't know if it came from Catholic guilt that I grew up with,
right?
Or the idea of that I wasn't worthy of the attention, but to make my inner peace a priority took some work. What would you say to people that have a struggle allowing themselves to be the priority, or allowing stillness or peace of mind to be a priority, to use these tools?
I'd say exactly the same thing that you said to yourself. the empty pitcher can't fill a glass. Okay. In other words, if you don't have yourself, if you don't have the integration of knowing who you are and what you want, then how are you going to help somebody else do that? You can't. You won't, because your neuroses and your proclivities will just get in the way, and you'll lead them down the wrong path. So absolutely necessary. And as you indicated, for so many of us growing up with religious traditions, maybe especially, it's difficult because it isn't, but it feels selfish. It's not selfish at all. In fact, it's very, very generous to take your me day. In fact, I think a more accurate name for your me day is a you day. In other words, you're doing it for the people that you serve, because when you come to them, you're there. You look them. I always think of it, looking in the eye is such an. So I'm sorry our video isn't working here, because I think looking somebody in the eye is so important. It happens. It can happen. It happens. For example, when you're buying something at a store, instead of just doing it and giving the money and going away or whatever, look the person who's the cashier or whoever, look that person in the eye. Look them right in the eye. Can be very quick, and say thank you. Yeah. Just in that moment. That's a still point. That's a good example of a still point. That's very, very brief, very quick, but nevertheless extremely helpful.
Absolutely. And you've given us some great pointers and great tools, and we're running out of time, but I'm wondering if you have like one last tool or exercise that you could offer our viewers that they could get started with this, besides going to buy the book, which I'm showing here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I always say start with still points. Okay. Still points is the essence of stopping. Take those little moments, and it's explained very clearly in the book, but you don't even have to get the book to know how to do it, because it's so simple. Just take a very quick moment, a few seconds, stop, do nothing, turn your energy in, say a prayer or not, say an affirmation or not. You can do it anytime. Say you're in the car, you're at a red light, close your eyes, put your hands on the wheel. Turn your energy in. Be still. Who are you? What do you want? What are you doing? Okay, then go. And then your going will be, then you'll end up in the place that you want to end up in, not the place that the world wants you or somebody else wants you to end up in.
Exactly. And well, thank you so much, David. Can you tell us a little bit about where they can find the book or learn more about you or follow you? Or
Sure, yeah. It's the book is available at all booksellers, online booksellers, and bookshops can order it. It's The Art of Stopping: How to Be Still When You Have to Keep Going, published by Canary Press, which is part of Mango Publishing. And you can get it at bookstores, and I have a website. It's www.stopping.com. Very easy to remember. Or my name, davidkundtz.com.
That's great.
Thank you so much, Bernard. This has been great. I've enjoyed talking with you a lot.
Yes, me too, David. I really appreciate it. And thank you again for joining us. And so everybody, next week, I will be doing one of my consciousness talks. I haven't come up with my topic yet, so I will be writing that this week. Let's see, I might be inspired from today's talk with David. Until then, everyone, have a wonderful week. Thank you again so much. And remember, the name of the book is The Art of Stopping, if my microphone will let you see it. And learn to take a breath and stop. You're worth it. Make yourself a priority. I love you, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.